And Barkley, even though his numbers don't jump out at you, like Mark said, he left this game with a shoulder injury, disappears, comes shooting out of the tunnel, as we're told by Mark Sanchez, and immediately has a huge impact play, scores the the touchdown run on a direct snap to put them ahead and complete the comeback. And for Green Bay, this is the second straight week where I've been watching them, and I'm waiting and waiting for the defense to make the big play, to get the big stop, to get the game under control, and they can't do it. Here is what Matt LaFleur said about the effort of his team after the loss.
Give New York all the credit. They outcoached us. They outplayed us. They definitely wanted it more, and it was the tale of two halves, and they kicked our butt in the second half, and you can't do that in this league.
You cannot.
Couldn't get any deep throws going. 0 for 6. They've actually had plenty of explosive plays. They're just a weird team right now, but I think their defense is soft. And we came into the year thinking this is going to be the best Packers defense in a while. It's loaded on paper. Devondre Campbell not playing as well. Rasul Douglas, who had a killer penalty in this game, not playing as well as a year ago. On paper, they look great, and then in the fourth quarter, they feel like you can kind of push them around a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'll say this, though. I'll say this. They missed Davante Adams, and I know that's not breaking news, but there's so many moments in the last 2 weeks even, but especially in this game, where when things get tight, all of a sudden Rodgers throws a perfectly placed slant that goes for 38 yards. Like that big play to calm things down. And I know the offense is not the quote-unquote problem right now, but when you factor in the defense that is not bowing up to shut things down, and then the offense not quite being where it needs to be, you're getting these close games, and it worked out last week against the Patriots and a third-string quarterback, but it didn't work out this week, and I think, Greg, they said it. I mean, Mark, they said it. Aaron Rodgers said it last week. He said the way we've been playing is not sustainable, playing all these close games, and then they go to London and do the same thing again, but this time get beat.
Right, in a game that almost essentially said this is where the Giants' journey ends in terms of being the fun little flavorful 3-1 team, and it was the opposite because this is a Packers team. This is a Packers team that does not play complete games. So the coach said it today. Rodgers has said it. There's been multiple cutaways with how frustrated he's not in a place in his career where he wants to probably tutor a big group of young wide receivers because there's some talent there. There's no doubt. Romeo's been good, but there have been these drops on some of these deep shots. And so they've not played a complete game. I can think about one moment today when it was 2020. The Giants tied it up. They had basically, whether you agree with it or not, the momentum, Patrick Claybon. But then the Packers go out and lay an egg going to 3 and out. And they never really came back from that. And then the tip passes at the end against Aaron Rodgers were the Giants' defense stepping up, which they've not done in years.
They're going to be around now. I've had my doubts about this Giants team, and I still do long term. But 4-1, and there's some pretty soft spots on their schedule. They're going to be a big part of this season, and we appreciate that. It does make it more fun. It seemed like a great crowd there. A lot of Packers fans there, a lot of Giants fans, and one fan of the Around the NFL podcast really made my day, Joseph Warley, trying to get an answer to an important question. They asked Dable, big spoon or little spoon, as he's running off the field.
Hey, Coach, big spoon or little spoon?
I don't know if you happen to see a separate Dable video of him running off. It made me fired up. He was like getting the crowd going as he's going into the tunnel, as if he was like the best player on the team, and he was going crazy. I love it. Big spoon, by the way.
Just in terms of context for people that don't know, in the middle of the summer, Kayvon Thibodeau was in this very studio, and Mark asked Kayvon Thibodeau if Brian Dable was a front spoon or back spoon type of dude, and Kayvon Thibodeau looked at Mark like he had an elbow growing out of his forehead.
He did, and I mean, I still want the answer to that question.
I think I know the answer.
I have a theory.
Without proof.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, without proof.
Nice job by the Giants. The Packers asking some questions. Now, the Giants have got off to a 4-1 start now. Last time they were 5-0 was 2009. I think that was the year that Plaxico shot himself in the leg at the club and everything went to hell. Could the Eagles improve to 5-0?
Here we go.
Plax Burris.
43-yard attempt. The ball is spotted. The kick is underway. The kick is
under the radar.
No good.
You missed
It's no good.
No.
It is wide right.
No.
good. He missed it. The officials hesitated, and he missed it. The Eagles are going to be 5-0.
Oh, you can't miss that kick. Merrill Reese with the call. W-I-P. The Cardinals, after, unfortunate situation with Kyler Murray sliding down feet first, thinking he has a first down. It wasn't. So after he spiked the ball, it was 4th down. So they had to bring out the kicker when they had a chance to maybe go for the win. And then Matt Amendola pushes that thing wide right. Final score, Eagles 20, Cardinals 17. The Eagles are 5-0 for the first time since 2004, when they won their first 7 games and finished 13-3, and I believe went to the Super Bowl. All right, Mark. I know you're feeling good because you locked up the Eagles.
I do feel good, and I was not the only one.
As did Greg Rosenthal.
Right.
Double lock.
He feels good, too.
But I could tell you were looking a little nervous in the second half of this game.
I was, because this is sort of the Cardinals' blueprint. First 4 drives, they got like 50 yards. They look like they haven't practiced all week. And the Eagles, in reverse, have 2 out of 3 drives that are long, powerful. Their offensive line without Jordan Mailata was controlling things, and Jalen Hurts is punching in 2 touchdowns from the 1-yard line. And you thought, look at this Cardinals team. They're just missing. They're missing weapons. Kyler Murray threw a terrible interception into what was one-on-one coverage with a safety waiting there.
That was bad.
Terrible throw, and it's sort of like you get this every game. The bad version of the Cardinals for typically 2.5 quarters, if not 3. Then they come to life, and they did in this game. I think there's something to pull from a Cardinals angle on this. The ending was a disaster, but which should be noted because it was tweeted by reporters at the stadium that when Kyler Murray, when he spiked that ball, thinking it was 4th and 1, that it was they had a first down. It was actually 4th and 1, but the stadium inside said that he had a first down. So it was a miscommunication for him. But still, you have to have more awareness.
That's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse, but it's a little
it is
aspect
an excuse.
to it.
Well, it'll be interesting. They'll ask him about it. We're taping this too quickly. For all we know, that wasn't a factor.
But I think we're taping this at exactly the right time.
I'm just saying, if he looked up and he saw first down, that
right.
I am giving him a pass for that. If that happened to the road team, we'd say, oh, that's home cooking. There'd be an outcry. But someone who works in the game production staff is dying tonight in Arizona.
Sure.
I mean, imagine being that guy right now.
That said, though, that's not the only instance in this game or other weeks of Arizona looking discombobulated. I mean, the one thing today, though, I thought if you want to pull hope from, because you're going to get DeAndre Hopkins back, I thought the connection between Kyler Murray and Hollywood Brown lit up today, and it really shows promise for the future. Rondale Moore made a couple big plays. You lost James Conner, and in came they do have other parts on this team. I do think Eno Benjamin's
a little better
a good
every
runner.
week.
Exactly. It's something to build off of, and it's this was the part of the season where typically maybe their years reversed, where their end of the year collapse is their start of the year collapse. But in general, I don't know if I buy this.
Why are we
team.
speaking so positively about
I'm not
the Cardinals
speaking
right now?
because I
you
thought
got to win this game, and that's I don't care what the clock or the announcer said. Don't make any excuses for Kyler Murray. You got to be sharper than that. You have to know what the situation is. He didn't. We would be. Tom Brady would never do that. That's a situation.
Tom Brady's lost track of timeouts in the situation.
I don't know. Keep making excuses for Kyler Murray. Go ahead.
I don't think I'm making
do
excuses.
it all
I'm not.
This is a great effort by the Cardinals.
It's not a great excuse for him at all. And what I've said was they've been doing this for 2.5, 3 quarters every week. It's not enough.
I just checked. This was
It's just another thing in a long line with this team under this coaching staff and with this quarterback where things don't work out the way they should because things aren't tight enough. It's not a tight operation in Arizona.
Right, and they played a better football team today, too. The Eagles, we should be talking more about the Eagles.
Right, this was the first game where Arizona didn't fall down 10-0 all season because they fell down 10-3 to the Panthers last week.
Still haven't scored a touchdown yet in the first quarter.
That's how their start is the game. I just think if he looked up and they said first, it's not someone said first down. They looked up and on the board it says first down. If he saw that, you could absolutely see that being a factor in why you're spiking. And it was a pretty unique play. It was kind of a brilliant play call, I thought, by Cliff Kingsbury that he didn't execute right. They called a quarterback run despite not having any timeouts. But if you got the first down, if he had dove head first or gotten the actual first down.
That's part of it,
right,
too.
No,
that's my point.
That is the part of
He
like,
started his slide before the marker.
He clearly could have gotten it physically.
This is part of the Kyler Murray thing that I find frustrating.
Don't straw man this because it's like
there's no straw man here.
Kyler
I hear excuses being made for this.
I don't think so. We're calling them discombobulated, disorganized for 3 quarters a week. They're a hot mess, but they've gotten a little bit better on offense each week too. And on defense,
moments, I was amazed.
Their defense did a good job today.
I'm amazed.
They were amazing today. I agree with you guys.
I don't mean that. I just mean they've looked a little more. They've looked a little more like an NFL team every year. Now that said, they did come back. They make it 17-17. It's fourth quarter. The Eagles get the ball. Definitely the toughest situation that the Eagles have been in all year. And the Eagles go on a Cesslarian 17-play drive where it's almost all runs. But the key play in that drive to me was 3rd and 12. They've been blitzing Hurts all game. It's mostly worked in good spots for the Cardinals. They blitz him on 3rd and 12. He's totally under pressure. There's free rushers, and he hits Dallas Goedert for a first down to go set up the game-winning sequence. They didn't end up punching it in, but it was a big sequence where it got him another step, I think, along the way for Jalen Hurts to deliver like that in a fourth quarter.
Yes, the Eagles 5-0, like I said, first time since 2014, and a huge showdown with the Cowboys next week. So a lot of fun. All right, let's speaking of the Cowboys.
What a division. The NFC East is back.
Let's see what happened with the Dallas
it's here
Cowboys.
whether it's here or not. We know
across
that,
the sidewalk at SoFi Stadium. Let's take a break. Why? All right, so the Eagles are 5-0, but there's a team hot on their trail in the NFC East. What happened with the Cowboys across the street at SoFi Stadium?
And they're going to give the ball to Pollard. He busts up the middle. He broke a tackle right to the 40. Chased from behind at the 30. Turns left at the 20. To the 10. To the 5. And Pollard with a house call. Touchdown, Tony Pollard. 57 yards by Pollard.
Brad Sham, the Sham God, KRLD with the call. Tony Pollard is better than Zeke Elliott. But whatever. Let's stay positive. The Cowboys are winners of 4 straight after a convincing 22 win over the Rams, who are defending champions in name only. More like champions. Nailed it. Greg, that is 5 straight defensive efforts from Dallas that have ranged from great to dominant. Where does this one slot in?
I mean, this is right near the top for the Cowboys defense and Micah Parsons. We've got a punchy Dan Hansis tonight. I like that. We had a punchy Parsons in the second half.
Punchy Parsons.
You know, he heard that there was a little bit of a curse, the LT curse. He had a quiet couple weeks ever since he, got sick, and he went to the Giants in the Meadowlands, and it's been a little banged up.
And you guys said he was Lawrence Taylor, and then there was a voodoo curse.
Yeah, he's better than Lawrence Taylor because nobody has more sacks.
Now he's better.
In the first 21 games of his career than Micah Parsons. No one in the history of the NFL. And tonight was kind of a...
Get lost. LT was better. Back after this.
Exactly. Tonight was kind of one of those... like Lawrence Taylor type of games, though. He comes out, he's limping, he's only playing on passing downs in the second half, and he ended up with 9 pressures in this game, and I think they almost all were in the second half, at least 7 or 8 pressures in the second half, 2 forced fumbles. He forced a holding call, a few tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits. Like, he was in the backfield basically every play. He was on the field in the second half of this game, and he made it, much like Monday night for the Rams, impossible for them to run an offense. Now, this is absolutely a Rams problem, but it's also anyone that plays the Cowboys problem, because even though Parsons had an epic game, it's everyone else on the defensive line too early in this game that made it tough for the Rams, and they are a problem.
Well, and I mean, Micah Parsons, late in the game, I saw a cutaway of him after a tackle where he's sort of doing the thing a little kid would do when he's trying to hold in, having to go to number 1, and it's like, oh wait, this guy is playing through a terrible groin injury while wreaking utter havoc on Matthew Stafford.
I would imagine the medical staff said he's not at risk of injuring it further, so that makes sense that he was staying in, and he's great, so he kept making an impact. So you have the defense, again, they've given up 1 touchdown exactly in every game so far this year. All 5 opponents have scored exactly 1 touchdown, nothing more, nothing less. So you know what you're getting from Dallas's D. As long as they stay healthy, and this isn't a serious issue for Parsons, hopefully, and he continues to dominate, that's going to be a big part of this. On the Rams side of it, this is really bad. It is. I remember after like week 2 or 3, Mark, we talked about the Rams, and I was like, let's see where they're at. Let's see once they get their footing. And now I don't think it's too soon to panic with the Rams, because you take away that Cooper Kupp 75-yard touchdown in this game, and that's it. There is no juice to this offense. Stafford looks old. He doesn't look and I'm not saying he is old and he can't play anymore.
Doesn't look
healthy. But the way things are moving, the way the offense looks, his inability, he's thrown 1 touchdown pass in 3 games now. And the Rams are not getting anything on the ground, 2.5 yards a carry on 15 carries. And as we know, as everyone knows, Allen Robinson is not working out. Another very quiet game for him, 3 catches for 12 yards. So it's that feed, keep pumping it into Cooper Kupp, or else.
Well, so they're one-dimensional on that front, because they also, and I get that it's 2022 and half the league or more than that don't care about running the ball, but like there is 0 balance to this offense. The whole thing channels essentially through Cooper Kupp. There's massive protection issues. We can look at what Joe Burrow and the Bengals did with protection issues a year ago. That's a total aberration in the NFL. Matthew Stafford under duress, the way that he's been, no matter what they've done with their line combinations, last week, this week, have been utter disasters. The Buffalo game, which I was like ready to throw that out because it just seemed like maybe that's just not, it's week 1. Like that was an indicator of what was to come, their core issues. And I know Sean McVay is, after they play the Panthers next week, they've got to bye. Is it a crisis? I mean, teams have to work their way out of this, but it is because Sean McVay has a week in between each of these games to fix it, and nothing's getting fixed.
Well, they've played 2 of the best defenses in the league in a row, but I think it's fair to say they have a bottom 5 or 6 offense right now. I mean, nothing's working. David Edwards, the offensive lineman, they were excited to get back this week from a concussion, left this game with after being tested for another concussion, which is very worrisome for him. And when you have 2 in a short area like that, you're usually not playing football for a long time. But it's also some of their regular starters that were getting beat. I mean, it was Havenstein was getting beat. He's their best guy. And on defense, I asked for them to step up, and they did. I mean, the defense gave up only 15 points in this game, And 3 of those were on a turnover that they basically stopped and held up in the red zone. So the defense did everything they could. They did give up a couple plays. We listened to the Pollard play, but I'm not going to kill the defense on a day
239 yards.
Right, when Cooper Rush barely got over 100 yards.
239.
I mean, you are playing Cooper Rush, who's played well, but it's a backup quarterback.
Right, but they got pressure. They made a couple plays. You mentioned the Cup play for 75 yards. Tutu Atwell.
That was the other one.
They took out of mothballs, and he had a 54-yarder, but they're just very limited right now. But I do think the fact they've played the Cowboys and the 49ers is making this seem even worse than it is.
But that said, if they're going to go anywhere defending the Super Bowl titles, like you're going to probably meet the Niners and the Cowboys again.
Right. They have to be a different team in 2 months than they are now. And I think they potentially could be.
Go check out the Rams maybe in November of last year and some podcasts that we did when they were in a deep funk back then, and you would have thought there'd be no way they could get fixed, and then they win the Super Bowl. So it's not over for the Rams, but I think there's reason for concern. I just can't see I cannot watch any more Ben Skwarnek 6-yard receptions. I feel like that's all their offense is.
That was
when
a
they're
nice
not
finish for a couple
Cup.
weeks, but we need to get
it's
to
like,
reality.
6 yards to Skwarnek, 6 yards to Skwarnek, 6 yards to Skwarnek. No more 6 yards to Skwarnek.
It's a Twitter favorite.
I mean, he is absolutely more valuable than Allen Robinson, though.
That's a huge issue.
I went to go look at Allen Robinson's contract. He is guaranteed $15 million next year. The biggest moment this offseason. Granted, there were
Como se dice boondoggle?
There's some crazy moves happened this offseason, but just in terms of a sliding doors moment, Von Miller taking that extra money from the Bills when they came in hot at the very end. And the Rams then pivoting and deciding to use that money on Allen Robinson was a devastating
and trade Robert Woods.
Was a devastating 1-2 punch in a row.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we talked about the Giants, the G-men.
Dak could be back for Eagles-Cowboys. It was perfect.
Take your time, Dak.
This is perfect because Cooper Rush had 102 yards. It's like, okay, let's bring Dak back.
It's time. But even if Cooper Rush never threw another pass, if they ever won a ring, he should be first in line.
Fitted for a ring.
He saved them.
I mean, how about the quarterback who, in theory, won the ring for him? He is. I have to give you a good stat here, though. He is the first quarterback, and I can't believe this is true, in NFL history, I think, to win his first there was something crazy to win his first four starts after coming in as a reserve.
It's good to have a great defense. It's good to have Nick Shook. Let's get to our next game.
Snap. Josh handles it. Back to throw. Pocket collapsing. Fires a deep one downfield. Looking for Gabe Davis. Makes the catch at midfield. He's going to sail into the end zone. Gabe Davis at the 20. At the 10. Touchdown. Holy mackerel. 98 yards. Touchdown. Gabe Davis on 3rd and 10 at their own 2. That's the way to start. Holy mackerel.
It's good to have Gabe Davis. John Murphy with the call. WGR. That's that Gabe Davis. Nice to see you, buddy. Facing a 3rd and 10, backed up at his own 2. First drive of the game, Josh Allen went deep. Davis caught it in stride, 98 yards to the house. He added another long touchdown in the second quarter, and the route was on. Final score, 38, Bills, 3, Steelers. How far the Pittsburgh football team has fallen in Western New York. Shooky, here he is, our buddy. Shook, the Bills are in full flight, and it's a breathtaking watch.
Sure is breathtaking, especially when you see them on their own 2-yard line to start the game. And then there goes Gabe Davis down the middle of the field, streaking down the field. Josh Allen delivers a beautiful pass to him. 98 yards later, they're on the board, and that was just the start. They were
I explained that, though. Why you're saying it again now.
I think he did it in his own way. He did it in his own wonderful way.
You're on Dan's radar. Dan's a little punchy. Nick doesn't know, but Dan's a little punchy. And if ever the pipe has to worry about Dan coming at him, it's tonight.
I don't think the pipe ever has to worry about me or really anyone else connected to the NFL media group. Pipe, yes, but that was even more impressive, Pipe, was that he's cutting that throw that spiraled through 20-mile-per-hour gusting winds. But that's just what Josh Allen and this Bills offense is able to do that others can't.
Yeah, you never would have been able to tell by the statistics. 424 yards passing for Josh Allen. The completion percentage not totally up there, 20 for 31 overall, but it didn't matter. They were just flinging it around the field all afternoon. I don't know if it's a lack of fear in the Steelers defense, which is basically toothless without J.J. Watt rushing the passer, or if they just felt, you know what, let's throw it around the yard and see what happens. They found a ton of success. It didn't matter who he went to. He was great with Stephon Diggs. Khalil Shakir got his first career touchdown today, 3 catches for 75 yards. No matter where they went, it worked to perfection. This is the Bills at their peak. This is what we expect from them offensively on a week-by-week basis. And again, like I said, against this Pittsburgh defense, they really took advantage. I'm kind of worried about where the Steelers are defensively right now, more than I was even weeks before.
Allen threw for 348 in the first half, and this is, wow. I know T.J. Watt's out, and they're now 0-8 in games where Watt misses with injury. So you can't not factor that in. And I know Minka Fitzpatrick was also banged up in this game. But let's hear from Mike Tomlin. This is the worst loss of the Mike Tomlin era, and it's just more evidence of how different things are now. Post-Ben, post a lot of things at 1-4.
Satisfied with the effort? We just got smashed. Like, what are we talking about here, guys?
And if you're watching on YouTube or the NFL channel, you see the intensity in Tomlin's eyes. This was a non-competitive game that was over, really, boys, from the jump on the 98-yard touchdown. It never felt like a real game.
I mean, Shook, it's a tough spot, obviously, for Kenny Pickett. The minute that they named him the starter, you kind of look at their schedule and you thought, this Bills defense and this whole situation is going to be rough. I mean, how did he look to you? I thought at least what I liked about him, there was a couple moments where he took that one hit where they threw him to the ground and like his leg bent and he got up and just was like, this guy
hit.
This guy is like not going to take it sitting down. I think that's what I kind of love about his character and his kind of fire.
Yeah, it reminded me of Joe Burrow's Week 2 Thursday night performance in his rookie year against the Browns, in which they dropped him back and threw the ball over 50 times. They dropped Kenny Pickett back and threw the ball 52 times today. It really speaks to the fact that their offensive line is still not blocking well enough to run the ball consistently. Their running game is non-existent again, and they also dug themselves a big enough hole that they had to throw the football. And yet, for the lack of points, I thought Kenny did look good. That interception was probably his worst throw of the day, but he had some really nice connections, some near fantastic completions with some of these receivers, so they just barely got a foot out of bounds, that type of thing. I like what I see from him. I think you should be very encouraged by him. It's just the fact that they didn't play good enough football as a team to really show that off today. He's still way better than Mitch Trubisky already. I'm just going to say that right now. And Tony Romo spent a lot of the broadcast raving, you shouldn't be this good this early. You shouldn't be this decisive. That's who Kenny Pickett is. It's who he was in college, and I expect him to be that guy going forward. It's just they need to have more balanced offense to really show that off.
This Bills defense is a problem for the rest of the AFC. It's actually, I think it's one of the most meaningful developments of the first 5 weeks, because ultimately this first 5 weeks, what is it really going to tell us about who wins the Super Bowl? But I think their defense is even better than I expected, despite injuries coming into the year, and I think it's just going to make it even tougher to go there and win in the playoffs.
All right, Shooky. So the Bills keep rolling. They give Zeusser something to think about when it comes to the power rankings. They got him at number 2.
I give a lot to think about.
The best team in football? I kind of think they are. I don't want to be disrespectful to the Eagles, but
I think that's fine. The Eagles fans will.
I mean,
take
the way
it well.
that you speak about the Cardinals and the fact that they came within a kick
That's
of
true.
competing with the Eagles today, I think you've had your answer.
We're handing out lollipops to the Cardinals today.
No, we're not. We were not.
Hey, Shooky, do you want to talk about the Browns?
Mark, we were not.
No, I'm annoyed by that take because it's not accurate.
Hey, you brought it back up.
This is the cross I bear, guys. I'm bearing the Panthers cross this year, and I'll bear the Browns cross.
All right, let's hit it. The highlights of Browns-Chargers.
Play clock down to 4. Snap. Kick is up, and it is no good. No good. He pushed it right.
Yeah, money.
The Chargers are going to get out of here with a win. And, man, DJ, you want to talk about the skin of your teeth.
Be a professional, DJ.
I mean, DJ worked for the Browns, and it didn't go great from what I recall. So maybe there's a little I mean, he moved on to the Ravens, which was a more succcessful team.
Daddy's got a scratch.
Yeah.
Look at his
Kitty
leg,
does
just
like to
laughing at them.
scratch.
Just laughing at them. So.
Matt Money. It's good to hear Matt Money Smith's voice on our
is.
show. I just want to say that's nice.
Our friend.
And Daniel Jeremiah with the call KYSR. Brandon Staley owes Cade York a beer. The Browns kicker missed a 54-yard field goal with 11 seconds to play, allowing the Chargers to hold on for a 30-28 win. That miss came after Staley, the Chargers coach, who likes to play fast and loose, went for it on 4th down near midfield, setting up what would have been a crushing loss for the Chargers. And yet, Shooky, let me tee up Mark on this one. And yet, Mark, in the end, it worked out because the rookie sensation, who maybe I shouldn't have put it in the kicker club after 1 week, as it's gone to his head. He can't make the kick. He missed 2 in this game, and in the game they lost by 2.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a lesson that, what a kicker does in week 1 we've never seen before. There may be rough times ahead, especially if you played for a Browns team that, looking at these first 5 games, and Shook, you're feeling this as much as anyone, the inability to close some of these games where you had, like, for 3.5 quarters, I see so much that I like about this Browns team, especially with Jacoby Brissett, who I never thought would do what he's done. Play the way he has, Nick Chubb looking like Jim Brown, David Njoku looking like that contract made some sense at this point. I mean, the defense I have major issues with, but they've had a chance to go 5-0, and they are a mess record-wise because they cannot figure out what to do when it matters most in the end.
I think that anytime you put a game on a rookie kicker's shoulders, you're asking for trouble. But more importantly than anything, it's the fact that their defense has not been able to put together anything near a completely consistent game. It was bad against the pass the first couple weeks. It was bad against the run last week. And this week, it was bad against everything. So no matter how well this offense plays, because this offense is putting a good amount of points on the board with Jacoby Brissett, who's playing above expectation. Anytime you have those breakdowns defensively, and they're ugly at times, very ugly, then you're always going to be in these close games. They've lost their 3 losses this year, combined margin, 6 points. That's something that a defense can change. It's just 1 or 2 more stops per game. You can win those games. So I don't put it so much on Cade York. Yeah, he missed 2 field goals. He missed an extra point that opened the door for the Jets to win that game too. It's more about the fact that you cannot play consistent defense, and it is embarrassing. It's to the point where I'm watching out to see if they get rid of their defensive coordinator after only 5 weeks because it's that bad. It continues to happen. It's terrible, and that's why they are where they are. They're an average team because of it.
Because, Shook, like, this is not a first-year coordinator with new players. This is like these guys should know what they're doing.
Yeah,
but like part of the reason the Jets get back in is because Denzel Ward, who should be a top 5 cornerback from what we know, gives up. He's getting burned by Corey Davis. It's like, what is going on with this defense? Because we've heard Would say, oh, we're going to need to simplify things. I don't like hearing that from a multi-year coordinator.
Week 5 simplify is a bad sign. They seem like a dumb defense. They make a lot of mistakes, and there's a lot of confusion. And they seem like an incredibly soft defense. I mean, the Falcons embarrassed them last week, and the Chargers had 238 yards rushing in this game. Going into this game, they only had 258 yards rushing on the season. They almost topped that today. So
it's a toughie.
That's not good. And by the way,
I
see you were trying to get on Staley there, playing fast.
I am.
Hey, how about you try to win the game a couple times? We've been asking for coaches to do that forever. Give the balls to your best player and try to win. And hey, how about have 2 chances to win the game, win on offense or win on defense? That's why you do it.
All right, listen.
That's why you do it.
I get it, and to Staley's credit, he didn't back down after the game. He said, we're willing to live with that decision. There was no way I'm taking our offense off the field. And Cleveland's defense stinks. Okay, there's logic to it, but I just think it was beyond, the onions, put them in a wheelbarrow because you have a 2-point lead. You're at your own 46. You're up by 2 points. You take a timeout. And then you go for it. The Browns had 70 seconds and no timeouts. If you just execute on special teams, I think you're in good shape. But I understand that side of it.
The numbers would say that's like one of the clear. Now, I know you don't want to just go off the numbers, but that would have been one of the most clear decisions possible. Like one of the worst decisions of the week to kick it. And it's partly because of the lack of timeouts, because you can hope for your defense to stop them still. If you don't get the yards.
So the analytics would support going for it, right?
It was like a plus 12% type of point.
I think it's I think we agree and see all this business, but to me it just felt in the moment a little bit extra.
Oh, Keenan Allen didn't like it. He was watching on
Keenan Allen
home.
definitely
What did Keenan have to say?
What did he tweet here? Hold on. He said,
What the F are we doing?
What the F are we doing? Exactly.
See, I got Keenan Allen on my side. That guy's a stud. All right, Shooky, any other thoughts? A game where the teams combined for 908 total yards, 53 first downs, and your boy Jake Brisket has thrown just 3 interceptions all season. But man, he chooses
in killer spots.
He chooses
they've all
They've
all come in inside the last 3 minutes of the game. Last 3 minutes of the game, he's thrown all of them. But you know what? I've agreed with Greg a lot in my life, including agreeing with him on his decision to hire me way back in 2014.
It was a great one.
I've never agreed with him more than in this 3 minutes here.
Thanks, Nick.
That was good.
Didn't know where you were going with that, but I liked it.
Well, we'll see if you're on the show next week, Nick. All right,
punchy.
Nick,
your Jets are a winning team, and you're punchy, Dan. I love it.
I love you, Nick, and we'll see you next week, buddy.
All right, guys.
All right, we'll take a break, and then we will get to those New York
Don't you go
Jets.
against those analytics, Dan.
Never. I wouldn't. I wouldn't dare. We'll be right back. To the swamps of Jersey.
Play action. Thompson looks downfield. Under pressure. Lost the football. He was sacked. It's scooped up by Quinnen Williams. He's at the 5-yard line before he's brought down. The Jets with a strip sack. Quinnen Williams ends up with the recovery. First and goal, Jets.
Do you hear that? Will you hear that?
You deserve it.
40-burger bongos.
No, not just I deserve it. Jets fans deserve that. You hear the buzz? You hear the buzz in the building at MetLife Stadium when Carl Lawson ices that game with the strip sack of the third-string quarterback of the Dolphins? Whatever. Bob Wischusen with the call. Big play after big play. That was the story of the fourth quarter between the Jets and Dolphins. The Jets making all the big plays, Miami giving them all up, and it ended with 40-17. The Jets beat the Dolphins, who were 3-0, now 3-2. And as I said, you had Tua didn't even travel with the team as he continues his recovery from the concussion. Teddy Bridgewater steps in on the first series. Sauce Gardner blitzes off the edge, untouched, whacks Bridgewater in the end zone for a intentional grounding safety, and Bridgewater suffers an elbow injury, gets examined for a concussion. He gets ruled out. So he is out. So Skylar Thompson, who was a preseason star, steps in, and he was fine. I mean, he wasn't lights out, as you wouldn't expect him to be, but he wasn't the reason Miami lost this game either, in my opinion. What happened here was the Jets jumped out to a big lead early, and Miami gets things under control to the point where early in the fourth quarter, they're lining up for a field goal with a chance to go ahead, and every Jets fan is thinking the same thing. I can't believe we're going to blow this game with this situation. Teron Armstead also went out for the Dolphins early in this game with a toe injury, their star left tackle. And yet the field goal is missed, and then with Breece Hall leading the way, the Jets offense takes over, and then the defense gets the stops. And all of a sudden, like I said, Mark, there's juice around the Jets. I don't know if they're frisky. I don't know if they're spicy, but they don't suck. They don't suck. And this is interesting.
They're
this
at
is an
least
interesting
frisky
development.
at the very least.
They are certainly frisky. I think they are, just over the hillside exists spicy.
Go to Lambeau Field next week. Get a dub, and you're spicy.
The reason I think they are because
so spicy's definitely better than frisky is what we're saying?
I think it's a matter of opinion. I tend to think you graduate from frisky to spicy.
Okay. I tend to agree with you. I think frisky is also a mood that comes and goes. Spicy, if you're spicy, you're just spicy. Spicy food stays spicy for the most part. That's what the Jets are.
Can you say spicy a few more times?
I'll say it a lot for this team because this team has sucked wind for as long as we've been doing the show, outside of that fraudulent 10-6 year.
It wasn't fraudulent.
Well, whatever it was, it ended in a fraudulent.
Yes, it did.
This is actually, I think, a day where you could say it is a big win for Joe Douglas, who, Joe Douglas gets a lot of praise, and it's like we haven't seen it in wins, but his picked players are starting to become the core of this team. Like Breece Hall today, Sauce Gardner. I mean, it wasn't so much today, but Garrett Wilson's been good. Zach Wilson, after last week, he played a steady game today, it looks like today. It's like you can see the makings of a real team. And we finally, I thought, got the Robert Saleh that we got a little bit on the Niners sideline that I think helped get him a job because the guy was total fire. And here he was today. Very pumped up, and he should be because I think you put all this work into this, and you go through the seasons, and it's like last year was so rough. You've had injury situations with your wannabe starting quarterback this year already. Got to deal with Joe Flacco. And this happens today. I don't really care for the Dolphins side of it that much because it doesn't really matter. It's just the Jets probably learning we can win games.
Yes.
That matters.
And that was they've stolen the 3 wins that they have all came 2 comebacks in the fourth quarter. And then this game where they almost let a game get away, and then they just imposed their will on an opponent and blew them out of the building. So these are encouraging signs of growth. I think there's some swagger that starts to build with a young team, and the Jets are one of the younger teams in the league. So there is much reason for optimism after this game. The earlier comebacks, the Steelers win, the Browns, I almost didn't know what to make of those wins because they range from unlikely to miracle. This one's this is the one where you go, okay, I understand the Dolphins were shorthanded, but
who cares?
But it doesn't matter, yes, because the Jets got the job done, and you're right. The thing that's been haunting the Jets during the time we've done this podcast since 2013 is they don't have any good young players. They keep whiffing in the draft, so they stay talent poor. Sauce Gardner also had an interception in this game.
Wow.
He is a big-time defensive rookie of the year candidate. Garrett Wilson, absolutely in the discussion as one of the best wide receivers from his rookie class. And Breece Hall, with almost 200 total yards in this game, he has, I think, maybe over 200, has announced himself as a potential star himself. So there are true reason for optimism.
Can you imagine WFAN tonight?
We'll see how the Mets do.
Right, but with both football teams that have been moribund for so long, like showing some.
I saw this is the first time since 2015 that they've been both over 500. They were
a long time.
Midway through that year, they were.
That's a long time.
It's crazy.
Babies are now 8 when that was.
They are so much more talented, just generally. And you're right. That's the thing about putting a few deposits in the Mojo Bank early. Mm-hmm. You're right. They got a little lucky in those wins. You don't know what to make. Doesn't matter. Those wins still count.
Yep. I keep saying, who cares?
Right. Those wins count. And then you have games like this where you totally deserve to win, and that counts too. And you start to feel that you're in every game, that you can win in any situation. You said Skylar Thompson wasn't the reason they lost, but I didn't watch the game. They averaged under 5 yards per pass attempt. They were almost leading the league coming into it at nearly 8.
That's fair.
But
I don't even know. What was your Skylar Thompson throwing the ball experience?
Here's the thing.
What was it like?
The numbers lie a little bit because they gained 100 yards in penalty yardage on deep shots that got flags. So he did take shots. They didn't register in big gains for the receiver statistically, but they moved the ball with him thrown downfield. So probably would have been better with a quarterback with more experience. But again, they just got beat on both sides of the ball in the last quarter of the game and turned it into a laugher.
Well, they got to worry if they don't have their top 2 quarterbacks next week. They also could be without Xavier Howard, who missed this game, their top cornerback. And then the Armstead injury, that's been a recurring injury. And they mentioned that it was a situation where they wanted to get him out early because they have a plan of a specialist he's going to see in New York. And that's their big-time left tackle who's missed a ton of games over the last 5 years for the Saints. It's one of the reasons the Saints didn't want to
They can't have an injury without it becoming a total unsolved mystery scenario.
And in that vein, I do want to say the NFL has the new concussion protocol. And you saw with Teddy in this game, he had no concussion symptoms. He passed every test, but because a spotter saw him stumble, he was removed from the game, and that was enough to take him out. And now you could either tell me that's the NFL making improvements, or you could say some corrective steering has been done to the point where we're not letting guys play when they're symptom-free and telling the coaching staff, I'm ready and I want to go in. This is all fallout from the Tua injury and the back-to-back
And we announced
games.
this rule change this weekend, so you better believe we're going to find a way to give you an example of it on Sunday.
Especially if it's a Dolphins quarterback.
Well, I think the whole idea is that guys can pass the test and be symptom-free and be very much at risk for a head injury. Like, you can look like the players have shown they know how to pass these tests, basically, when they still are having a problem. So they're erring now
I understand
on the side of caution.
That remains murky still in terms of, like, you asked the question, what happens in January if a spotter thinks that Patrick Mahomes took a misstep? Is he out of a playoff game? I mean, there's
hopefully we don't find out, but yes, that's something to track in the post-Tua world after his head injury. Let's move now to the Superdome, where Geno Mania looks to keep running strong.
From the right hash mark, Taysom Hill keeps it, looks for first down, and he's got it, and he's got room to run. 50, 40, 30, 20. Will he get caught from behind? That is going to be a touchdown. Taysom Hill. Taysom TD. 60 yards.
Mike Haas with the call, WWL. I don't know how Taysom didn't get caught there. He was running out of gas, and he's looking behind him, waiting to be tackled. Just never got tackled, so he goes into the end zone. One of 3 touchdowns for Hill. Taysom Hill still doing things, including that 60-yarder in the fourth quarter. He threw a touchdown pass. The Saints snap a 3-game losing streak, and they much needed 39-32 win over the Seahawks. Greggy, Hill has always been a polarizing player, but in this game, he kind of saved their butts.
He has been great this year. He has been the most consistent part of their offense. This isn't just a one-game thing. Now, 4 touchdowns in one game. Also went 1 for 1 as a passer, you mentioned, for a touchdown. So that's his 4th. That's pretty unique. But he's been very valuable for a really disjointed offense. And I know someone could come at me with some numbers, but it feels to me like practically every time Taysom Hill has come into a game this year, like, great things have happened. He's their only answer in the red zone. Defenses have not had an answer for him. He's just a great power runner, and he almost never throws the ball. So teams know he's going to run, and this offensive line has blown up holes for him, and he was crucial in finishing those drives. But he also was their kick returner because Deontay Hardy got hurt, and he had some pretty good kick returns. And, oh, by the way, when they're trying to seal the game, I think it was on a Kamara run, they had Taysom Hill in at fullback, and he blows open a huge hole, knocking out a Seahawks linebacker. It's like I was thinking about Chris Wesseling, and I was thinking about Mark in that first Taysom Hill year where you guys were fascinated by him and enjoying it. And this was like an ultimate Taysom Hill
It's
game.
crazy that came like in a post-Sean Payton universe, but I had that sandwich bet that one year where I think I said he would score 5 or more touchdowns, and there was an elongated journey to get to that. I mean, it almost happened all in one day here.
Yeah, I remember there was that playoff game. I think it was a playoff loss where we were saying the best player was on the field was Taysom Hill. And it was just like,
you don't like that stuff, but he was.
But it's been like a meandering journey ever since for Hill. So, but to see him, carry this team, and Andy Dalton, Greg, what do we see from him? Because I know Jameis Winston has been now out a couple weeks, and it's very kind of murky, his timetable. Do you think Dalton is doing anything to hold on to this job?
Yes.
Or do you think it's his job?
Yes, just because I think they're just going to see how it keeps going. He's been far from perfect in both these games. I think he looks similar to a week ago where he's a little late on a couple throws. He had a bad interception. They also dropped a couple passes. He wasn't like the answer, but everything makes a little more sense with him. And he also was playing without Jarvis Landry, was a surprise late inactive, without Michael Thomas, and then Chris Olave was concussed on a touchdown catch that was overturned, and they said it was a touchdown, but he slammed his head after possessing the ball. So they were in a tough spot here offensively, and to me, he's just a little more trustworthy, and I think is making more sense in terms of their offense. They needed 39 points today because their defense was not really stopping Geno too often. Then again, Dalton, set up some of those points with the bad pick.
I mean, Geno with 3 touchdowns and 30-plus yards. I mean, I think Dan and I are just taking constant L's on the Geno front because
No, I'm playing the long game.
But
I'm waiting it out. But
I
I'm
mean,
concerned.
at this point, there is no L.
Right.
The fact that he had a 5-game stretch like this is beyond anything anyone
He's
could
not
have
supposed
imagined.
to be doing this. No.
He genuinely looks great. He looks great, and it is one of the most bizarre developments of the NFL season.
I'm taking the long game because that's the only choice I have at this point.
It is the only choice you
The
have.
short game isn't going to play.
I said that I had washed myself of all critique and was willing just to see what he did before the season, and I am seeing it, and I'm kind of just stunned this is our reality.
Dimes in this game. You mentioned 3 touchdowns, 268 yards. He did take like a sack at the end that was kind of an old, when they needed a touchdown drive late in the game. That was tough for him to take. Was kind of old. Geno held onto the ball, but his great throws in this game were next level. I mean, you have to kind of say if you're just judging quarterback play on this season alone, he's got a pretty strong argument as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL this year.
You're right. Right now, you're right.
I would say maybe a true great quarterback would have rallied him to a win today. I didn't see the game.
They put up 32. They had
to get that last touchdown drive. And
they had a terrible day, though, because they lost Rashad Penny, who to me is such a key to this offense.
Brutal.
To a potential broken ankle that's going to knock him out for the season, and I just don't think they're the same team without him.
One little every time I look up at the Seahawks defense, like Tariq Woolen is making a play.
Yeah, he was the one. He was the one making Taysom Hill look slow. He had a 4.26 40, so that's why he was catching up.
Don't try to have your own Hufanga.
What?
You're trying to have a Hufanga.
I've been pumping.
I am allowed to have that, by the way.
No, you can, but I see what you're doing. You're trying to have a Hufanga.
Not only is he not allowing you to enjoy Hufanga because he had a good week 1 and he was assigned to the 49ers, but you're not allowed to like other defensive players.
You do not own me or set those rules. How about that?
I just think. I
have a company org chart
Tariq
too,
Woolen.
and you are not above me in the company org chart.
He was great.
But is it true or is it not true that
what?
You see that I'm enjoying my Hufanga high life, and you're like, ooh, I want my own Hufanga.
I mean, I completely forgot about your Hufanga thing until you
well,
brought
he's
it up.
picked the wrong guy. I've been bringing up Woolen every week.
Oh,
he is amazing.
So you've claimed him.
He's kind of my guy.
I mean, you two are intensely possessive. I don't understand.
News, Mark.
It is the sport for all the people, not just you to have your little barn of players.
There's a blank spot for your guy.
Yeah.
Well, there's hundreds of other people for me to pick from.
I'm taking Jack Jones too of the Patriots.
Sorry, Jack Jones also off the board.
Extremely possessive.
Just a fun note for this game and for the Saints in general. The Saints are 2-0 against bird teams.
Yes.
Dan's not going to like this.
0-3 against non-bird teams. And they have a chance this year. This does not happen very often.
This is stupid.
They have the whole bird gauntlet that they could play this year.
How many bird teams are there?
Cardinals in Week 7, Ravens in Week 9, Eagles in Week 17. So they have a chance to go 5 or 6-0 because they play the Falcons twice.
Or 5-13 or 5-12.
Right. It would be really fun if they only beat bird teams, I think.
And 5-13 if they snuck into the playoffs at 5-12. Just to let you know mathematically there.
Bunch of nugs in there, all good. Speaking of birds, the Falcons, they headed to Tampa. They wanted to make a statement. Could they?
Rudolph in motion to the right, the snap, play action fake, and the pass by Brady to Fournette. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Easy pickings for Tom Brady and Leonard Fournette. Fire the cannons.
You know, that is so on brand. The Bucs are kind of my radar. It's not a very fun, exciting team. We're doing like a dump pass to Lenny Fournette for the touchdown for the highlight. But that's what it is. But he deserves it. You know why? Lenny Fournette was a stud in this game. He's been quiet this year, but he scored 2 touchdowns, had a mess of yards, and the Bucs take care of business with a 21-15 win over the Falcons. Mark, the Falcons made it close down the stretch, and you were very fired up in the newsroom today over a particular call late in this game.
Well, I think anyone watching this game would be, and certainly Falcons fans watched a potentially season-altering comeback melt away with what was one of the worst calls.
What happened?
So late in the game, Tom Brady is driving, but the Falcons essentially have him stopped and throw him down. Like there is a Grady Jarrett sack on Tom Brady that would have ended the drive. And it is called essentially for roughing the passer. And he put his arms around him and kind of wheeled him around to the ground. Perfectly fine tackle. And then this is the call. What happened?
Wes Durham and Dave Archer.
Listen to their
WCGC.
annoyance because it's fitting.
Falcons Radio.
Brady working from the gun. Brady retreats, looking. Here comes Grady Jarrett. You shall not pass.
Oh, that is brutal.
Surely they didn't call slinging him down. This will be a horrendous call.
A disgrace.
They're going to call Grady Jarrett for slinging down Brady on this sack. You will not see a worse play than this.
Speak to it. That's a disgrace.
I mean, we're watching that on the video here, and it was unbelievable. And that drive
it's not even close, Mark.
Not even close. That drive also had a 3rd and 4 call where the Bucs had the ball, and A.J. Terrell was called for holding. That was a completely bizarre holding call. And then even later, this went against the Bucs, but there was a deep shot that should have been pass interference. So that the calls were all over the place, and it seemed like this was almost a makeup call of some sort. But it completely changed the game and allowed the Bucs to go on to win. When the Falcons, like they've done in other games, were growing spicier and spicier, and they did not have Cordero or Patterson. They did not have Kyle.
Spicy?
They're frisky.
They are, I guess. To me, I want to see them as spicy because
should we have a spicy, frisky conversation on Tuesday's
I think we
show?
need to.
I think it's time.
I think
We've
all
been
have our
putting it
different
off long
ideas.
enough. It's time to have that conversation.
And even before when I
said
said
it right now,
even before when I said I had my definition of spicy,
you just flopped.
I see it as all sorts of things both ways.
Okay.
But the Falcons, just had to be so frustrated because this should have they
still would have had to score a touchdown.
They would have had to, but I think they
Just saying,
could
let's
have.
not hand them a victory if they don't get that call. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not. No, I think it's just it melted away their shot at going down the field.
I'm also a little annoyed by your guys' narrative lately. I don't like this. I don't like the style points. Tom Brady's not being entertaining enough. He's 45 years old and he has 730 yards in the last 2 weeks, but it's not pretty enough.
You know what I'd say?
It's like, Matt Ryan, put him in a casket and he's 8 years younger, and Brady's out here throwing dimes. And what do you want?
You're not wrong.
I don't know.
I go watch.
I just saw another
years
touchdown,
old.
like a 1.5-yard touchdown.
Greg, back the truck up for 1 second. It's just like there's not a lot of downfield action. Needs some nice stuff with Mike
That's
Evans.
all I'm saying, Greggy.
It's not a visual joyride.
I'm looking forward to watching this game, so I'll reserve comment on my thoughts on their offense. But I'd love to see a couple of those patented Tommy Boy spirals 50 yards down the field that Chris Godwin catches in stride for 70. You're just not seeing a lot of explosiveness from the offense. But I guess
I hear what you're saying. I'm saying this man is 45 years old, putting up 350 yards a week.
But I don't know what we bring up his age. We've already
because
we
he's
know
doing
that doesn't matter
something
anymore.
no one's ever done in the history of the sport. So
You're missing my point.
I'm grading him on a different curve.
I think you're separating Brady, who's throwing the ball well, from the way that it is to watch this offense. It's just something is a downtick from past years.
No doubt.
There was a boy who ran onto the field and, according to the Associated Press, was tackled hard by security personnel. This feels like something that would spring from your imagination, or maybe it's the boy inside you running onto the field, so it wasn't even a real person. Anyway, do you have anything on this?
I think if I had predicted in our October 4th something was going to happen by then predictions that a streaker would happen at the Rams.
It was a protester. Streakers
all right,
are nude.
But within a 7-day period, two human beings are doing this, and this is more bizarre. It's a child.
Wait, no one has a video of this?
Are we?
We got a small child getting slammed to the ground.
Let's not bury the lead here.
I want to see it.
The security guard goes, here's a 10-year-old boy. I'm going to slam him to the turf.
To me, if you run on the field, the laws of the society don't apply.
Apparently the mother,
age doesn't matter.
I read that the mother said that he was 10, but the official said he's older than 10. And then they said, hey, Mom, why are the kids on the field? She's like, I got a lot of kids here. Right. I lost track of this one.
How would the security official know by sight that he was older than 10?
This kid had some pretty good lateral quickness, so I don't think you could cut him any slack.
Hey, Ma, how about we don't take all the kids to the game if we can't account for them?
Right, limit the selection of who's going.
He got body rocked.
All right.
They would have called a penalty on that if someone did that to
Well,
Tom Brady.
what is this? Security man is meant to body rock people when they I'm not siding with him necessarily. I side with children.
And they did ask Tom about that BS call, and he said, hey, I don't make the calls, which is what I would say too. So, all right, let's take a break. We'll be right back. All right, let's move on and check in with the team of ATN. They have to do something. Maybe.
I mean, they did something.
To Foxborough.
Steady in the hands, he takes the snap. He is going to look to play it out. He's chased by Judon, going to the left. It's scooped up. Duggar has it. Foot race to the 35-30. Duggar's in the clear to the 10. End zone bound. High stepping, leaping, coming down with a touchdown, New England.
There's the call by Bob Sochi and a sentient Powerade bottle. WBZ. You know, I don't know, man. I don't know. Kyle Dugar made a house call from 59 yards out. Ramondre Stevenson rushed for a career-high $161. And the Patriots mowed down the toothless Lions 29-0 at Foxborough. Oof. Greg, you know, this is to the credit of Bill Belichick. The Patriots are, like, unique and to me that even now that they're not special, but if they're like ready for a team and prepared, and a team comes into their building on certain Sundays, these things happen. Like, if Belichick has a team's number and has them cooked up, 30-0, 40-0, 50-0, always in play. It happens a couple times a year. Happen here.
I think that's well put, and it speaks to the Patriots will still let other teams beat themselves. And I thought they were so close to doing that the last couple of weeks against two decent teams, the Packers and the Ravens. But when they play a team like the Lions, who are ready to beat themselves, they let it happen. And defensively, Bill Belichick had Jared Goff in a vice grip. I mean, I was having Super Bowl flashbacks. They got very aggressive with their pressures, and Jared Goff didn't know where it was coming from. This offense, which had scored the most points of any in the league, did not know what to do, and Goff was holding the ball and having that sort of Goffian type of game, to the point that Dan Campbell's comment to the sideline reporter coming out of halftime was like, Jared just needs to relax back there. And I was like, ooh, don't say that publicly. He did not relax back there.
Is this a Matt Patricia revenge game?
It would have been positioned the other way, I think, if they had lost. I'm sure the Lions players want to get
Let's hear, and again, the team of around the NFL,
oh my
since we named them the team of around the NFL, are winless in 3 games.
To me, it's about as bad as it gets. I mean, this is the worst. You know, this is where we're at, and sometimes it's going to get bad before it gets better. And you know, I believe we hit rock bottom, and so now the only place to go is back up.
What is happening to you, Dan?
No, play the Vince McMahon one.
The way it led right into Patricia was brilliant producing. Oh, I'm sorry, Lions fans.
Hey, man, this is a bummer. The Lions are not doing well.
Is
it rock bottom? Because, I mean,
I think so. I think they're going to bounce back.
I guess. These things can always get worse.
29-0 is pretty bad against the Patriots team that's starting a third-string quarterback. And the one thing that I wrote about in the Power Rankings last week is, like, we knew the defense has all sorts of problems, and we saw it again in this game. But the offense had been scoring 35 points a game, and the concern was, what if that comes back down to earth and the defense stays bad? Then you're one of the worst teams in the league. And that's what they look like. You know, based on the score, that's what they seem like in this game.
You are a factory of sadness!
They went 0 for 6 on 4th downs, so that was a factor. Like, they were moving the ball. That's the most 4th downs anyone's ever attempted. No one had ever topped 5 without doing it, without gaining one before. Jack Jones is a thing. This rookie cornerback is a playmaker for the Patriots. And Matthew Judon has been, you can't have Jack Jones.
I'm not playing this game with the two of you
Second straight
throughout
week.
the entire episode.
And Matthew Judon is having a monstrous season. That was his strip sack. He had 2 sacks in this game. He has a sack in every single game this season. And, you mentioned Zappe. Oh, by the way, the third-string quarterback goes 17 for 21, 188, and his interception only came because Nelson Aguilar starts playing volleyball
that
with
is
the
so
ball.
Patriots, by the way.
Yeah.
It's almost like all the hand-wringing about the coaching staff being in tatters. This is a well-coached team that's going to make the most of what they have.
The AFC East is back. How about that? This is the best. I don't think the Patriots are going to be major factors, but I think they're going to be a tough out, and this is a team.
They are
a division full of
They're
tough
a nice
outs.
little berserker.
Yeah.
Let us head to Landover.
Wentz takes the snap. Looking, throwing, intercepted! Intercepted, David Long! And the Titans have shut down the Commanders! That was the big play, and it came
What a play.
on the last play, and that's 3 in a row.
Never a doubt.
I doubt it.
Mike Keith, WGFX, with the call. David Long Jr. intercepted Carson Wentz at the 1-yard line with 6 seconds to play, allowing the Tennessee Titans to escape with their 3rd win in a row, 21-17 over the Commanders. Gravedigger, you know what? Listen, don't look now, but all of a sudden Titans are in first place. Everybody else stinks. The AFC South seems to be in good order for you, but I'm sure you were white-knuckling this one with the rest of Titans Nation when Carson Wentz had them at the 1, right?
Well, here's the thing. Carson Wentz had gone the entire game without making a mistake. So as a Titans fan, you're like, it's coming. Here comes the interception.
I had locked up your Titans, and even I was standing next to Greggy in the newsroom. We were watching it, and I was like, no, he's going to botch us. He's Carson Wentz. It's coming. It's coming. And after he nearly threw one pick, then he threw the one that iced the game.
On the next play, yep. And this was a pretty ugly game overall, I feel like. Lots of sacks, lots of holding penalties. Both offenses struggling to move the ball. Titans score 7 points in the second half, which is the most points they've scored in the second half since week 1. So that was an improvement, I guess. Both teams really banged up on the offensive line, so it felt like both quarterbacks were under pressure the entire game. And that was just it's not fun to watch.
I'm going to check right now in real time. Did these teams combine for 600 total yards of offense? Here we go.
Yes, because
Drum roll,
for the 4th game in a row, the Titans allowed a 300-yard passer, which is the longest streak in franchise history to allow a 300-yard passer.
This is such a Titans game. You get outgained by 140 against the Commanders, but you get out of there. That really was a great play at the end. But I don't think it's a rule just because you can get 4 plays that you have to throw the ball 4 straight plays.
Well,
because it's Carson Wentz throwing the ball. I know they don't have a timeout.
They had 18 seconds when they were set up at 1st and goal.
You could have put Carson Wentz in sort of a run-pass option situation and get him out on the edge on 1st down. And even if he gets stuck in bounds and makes a bad decision, you can still get up to the line. Like when he was throwing the ball, it was just waiting for the interception.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of also like the Thursday night game, the way that ended with Russell Wilson in straight shotgun with nobody in motion, no run-pass option, and you just kind of like put yourself in a tougher situation. And with Wentz, it's like, why give him so many chances to mess with you where he's a big guy. Like, head towards the goal line. Yeah. Good things could happen. But that Shooky, I guess, not Shooky, Gravedigger, I think the issue that
definitely not Shooky
I would have here is, 241 total yards for the Titans, less than 4 yards per play. Derrick Henry looks like Derrick Henry. The big dog is still the big dog. Everything else still seems like a lot of work needs to be done.
I came out of this game thinking that the only playmaker the Titans have on offense is Derrick Henry, and I kind of felt that way going in, but after the game, it's just so clear. They are passing him the ball more, and they had a brilliant screenplay set up to him where Tannehill made a nice throw through traffic to get it to him. And then on the next play, they faked a screen to Henry and came back to Dontrell Hilliard on the other side, who ran into the end zone, which was a nice play. The game-winning play for the Titans was a downfield strike to Nick Westbrook-Akina, which was like the 4th longest play air yards attempt of the season by any team. And it was a weird play because the cornerback for Washington just like stopped covering Westbrook like midway down the field. Like, I don't know what he was looking at.
I would like to know why in the middle of my Saturday I receive a text with Jessica sitting in my seat here in the studio with an announcement suggesting that she's replacing me on the show because Justin's visiting the building with family and making plans for the future and the production.
Well, we had a friends and family visit. That's a cool thing that the NFL office allows us to do on Saturdays. So I
don't think Mark has a problem with that specifically.
That part seems nice for you.
Yeah, so I brought my parents and Jessica and a couple that are friends with my parents that I've known my whole life here to see the studio.
That's wonderful.
See what I do.
Are you at all concerned, Graver, that she missed Mark so much she had to like get into a place where she could physically touch something he had touched once?
That's a fair question.
That's an apt query by Greg.
I wasn't until you brought that up. No, I'm not
The
concerned
Commanders
about
were 1 of 11 on third down, including that interception. They're last in the NFC East, and
And their first third down conversion was on that 2-minute drive.
The old Zeuser got a little lucky there at the end.
Not
Never
not
as lucky as our Eagles lockers. Come on.
No.
By the way, speaking of locks, so Zeuser's 4-1, alone in first place, and the Wessling brothers, who did they lock?
They locked the Rams.
Yeah, you know what?
Oh wow.
Can we just go over something here? Now I'm thinking about it. Nick's message that we played in the Thursday show.
Very confident. Yeah.
In the message, he mentioned that his brother Mike, old Zeuser fan, wanted to pick the Jets. Jets won. Phil Wessling wanted to pick the Chargers.
Ooh, good one.
Chargers won. Eddie wanted to pick the Cowboys.
Nobody's underdog. Eddie.
And then the decision was made, though. Nick chose the Rams.
You blew it!
Isn't it maybe time for Nick to, almost as a penalty, to give up the video duties and the message to the show on Thursday?
I think he should be penalized, because if you go back to the listener and listen to the Thursday show, there is certainly an aura of hubris.
He made fun of Eddie. He says Eddie's famous for
right.
bad decisions, so I'm just going to flip the pick and take the other team.
There was no committee work. He just sort of slammed them all down and shoved them aside, and then he created the only loss possible.
And then he goes on Twitter and he tried to make a statement. This loss is 100% on me. Yeah, we know. We were there when you made the pick. Of course it's on you.
Like the quarterback that throws it right to the linebackers is tapping his chest as he goes back to the sideline. We know, bro. We knew that the Charlotte football team, the Carolina Panthers, would have a hard time of it on Sunday, and sure enough, that's how it played out.
Baker out of the shotgun, four-man pressure, throws too high, intercepted. Emmanuel Mosley running back the other way, cuts inside, 10, 5, Mosley, touchdown! E-Man with a house call.
Greg Papa with the call, KNBR. Emmanuel Mosley returned that interception from Baker Mayfield, 41 yards for the score, and the Niners coasted to a 37-15 win over the Panthers. And I wonder if Matt Rule, by the time people are listening to this, still has a job, because this is another non-competitive effort at home. The team is now 11-27 under Rule, and you just get the feeling it's getting close for Rule now. So the Niners kind of just took care of business in this game, guys. Somebody had to watch it. I watched it. They didn't jump off the page to me or jump off the screen. Garoppolo threw for 253 and 2 touchdowns. Jeff Wilson ran for 120 yards and a touchdown. It was a mismatch here, and Carolina just can't get anything going on offense. Baker, near the end of the second quarter, suffered an ankle injury and was walking around in a boot after the game. And the only thing worse than Baker this season, Mark, would be the idea of playing Baker when has no mobility. It just goes from bad for worse for Carolina and for the Niners and for Gravedigger, who locked up the Niners. Sometimes you just take care of business, check the box yourself.
No, it was a
and move on.
workmanlike day by the Niners and a lock for Gravedigger. I find the Baker Mayfield journey about as depressing as it gets. I find the dark energy around the Panthers inexcusable. A lot of it has to just do with the way they've handled this quarterback situation for years. It's somehow gotten worse and worse and worse. And this version of Baker Mayfield, I mean, look, there have been no illusions on my behalf with Baker Mayfield that he was a top 10 quarterback for a long, long time. But we have seen versions of Baker Mayfield, throws that he's made in the past, streaks he's been on, games like in 2020 when he was a pretty flawless quarterback down the stretch. That player, that person is gone right now. And the Panthers, as part of that, are completely floating. This is one of the hardest teams to watch in the league.
I call this an empty restaurant game. You know how it's really depressing to eat in an empty restaurant?
Yeah.
You got the staff there, and it just seems sad because the place isn't doing well. Watching the Panthers right now with the head coach situation and knowing that the fan base is turned against the quarterback who's not playing well, and they don't even really have someone to turn to. P.J. Walker got some snaps in garbage time here. It's just a bad scene for the Panthers
too.
right now.
Late in that game, I saw some tweets and some pictures, just like 49ers fans were still there, Panthers fans were not. And that sort of image often does happen on your last day as as coach. It's too bad for the 49ers that they were struck again by more really significant injuries in this game. Emmanuel Mosley is believed to have suffered a torn ACL, and I really think that one huge difference this year is their secondary has been better. Charvarius Ward has been a fantastic pickup, and Mosley's been a rock-solid cornerback right next to him, and I think they're going to lose him for the year. Robbie Gould got hurt. Jimmy Ward broke his hand.
Nick Bosa got hurt.
Jimmy Ward had hurt like 207 times.
Right. He can probably at some, he can come back from that. And it's too bad because otherwise there was a lot of positives for this game. They ran the ball well. They had 3 or 4 long offensive drives, which they actually haven't done all year. So against a decent defense, it was a great game for them, but just more injuries.
All right. Let's take a break and we'll be right back. All right. The Packers went down. Opportunity for the Vikings. And they get the Bears. Take care of business. Let's see what happened. U.S. Bank Stadium.
Fields back to pass, throws left, it's caught. Emir Smith-Marset against his former team. Cam Dantzler stole it from him, and he slides down and wins the game. Cam Dantzler ripped the ball away from his former teammate, Emir Smith-Marset, and he has stolen all hope the Chicago Bears had. The Vikings are going to win.
And they did. Paul Allen with the call. KFAN. There are 2 listeners that know I'm referencing the 1989 Hulk Hogan movie, No Holds Barred.
I've seen that.
Anyway, Cameron Dantzler sealed the victory for the Vikings, ripping the ball away from former teammate Emir Smith-Marset near the 1-minute mark. It sealed a 29-22 win for the Vikings over, for at least one Sunday, the feisty Bears. Oh, we didn't factor in feisty.
That could be a third
Frisky,
category.
feisty, spicy.
We should do tiers, I think.
I mean, feisty is my least intriguing of the bunch.
I think we all are in agreement on that. That's
but
fair.
it's a step.
But anyway, Mark, so this game was interesting because it wasn't interesting. The Vikings were cruising, and then as the Vikings do, they let the opponent back in.
I'm going to step in here for Mark because I was assigned to this game, and I enjoyed it. I watched it in the late window.
Why does the paperwork say otherwise?
Yeah, I was in a panic. I was in a deep panic.
Mark looked at me. Please help me.
That's not how I said. That's not how I would have said that.
The Word doc says otherwise.
I mean, you don't have to dig his grave. You don't have. You could fall on the sword.
The Gravedigger's dig.
He dug his own.
He dug it himself.
I dug my own grave on that one.
No, it's okay.
You got to give
live shows are hard.
You got to give the Vikings some credit. They are extremely streaky. Kirk Cousins is
what's new?
Maybe the most streaky quarterback in the NFL in general. He can get on hot streaks where he's incredible. Started 17 for 17 in this game. Some beautiful touch passes, and then they can go through total quiet periods. But you got to admit, when they've absolutely needed a drive this season, they've gotten it. When they've absolutely needed a stop this season, they've got it. And that's why they're 3-0 in these one-score games, and that's why they don't feel like they should be 4-1. But they were clearly the better team this afternoon, and I think they deserve this one.
I don't have to apologize for it, but also the slow ebb for Justin Jefferson a couple weeks ago. He's broken out of that because he exploded in London, 12 catches today, 154 yards. I think when that's happening,
10 at halftime.
When that's happening, then I think Kirk Cousins can overcome his streakiness to some degree if you're going to get this out of Jefferson.
Some of those was a nice
going to overcome it.
Yeah, he's not going to.
But this is an interesting quote from Cousins. This is what he said after the game. I'm not where I was at the end of last season in that old system, but we're developing it, and we're getting there, and I'm excited about that continued growth. It's a start. That's all it is, though.
It is a new offense, though.
That makes sense to me. He also had a bad interception that was part of this comeback. At that point, it was 21-19 Vikings, and it looked like they might blow this game. They were up 21-3 at halftime. Justin Fields definitely had his best day throwing the ball. They protected him really well, so there were some encouraging signs for the Bears. But like I said, they were down. They were down 22-21. Okay, Vikings, you've kind of got pushed back. What are you going to do? And they just marched right down the field, a dominant drive. Jefferson gets the 2-point conversion. Cousins made really nice throws when he absolutely needed to.
Justin Fields check-in before we move on.
Yeah, he played well.
Okay.
The first half, not so much.
You said his best game.
21 throws for 208 yards. He was back there cooking steaks, so that helped that he was protected really well. But that's like the new phrase.
Kids are saying that?
Kids are saying they're back there cooking steaks.
They're saying that about a quarterback being well protected or something else they're doing?
No, they're talking about quarterbacks that are
caked up and cooking steaks.
I don't know if they're going to say he caked up. Also, there was a play he ran on that got overturned by penalty that just reminded me, gosh, you got to get Justin Fields in the open field running. It is fearsome when he has a head of steam behind him. Kevin O'Connell in his bag in this game. I mean, there were trick plays. Justin Jefferson had a nice pass. There's a push pass to Rager. Everything was working for a little while.
Anybody on the Minnesota defense that might fit the mold for Mark having a guy?
I would not go NFC North.
I thought you were going to say, is there anyone caked up on the Vikings defense? I was like, I'm going to have to.
Well, I'm sure there is. I'm sure they're fit individuals.
All right. We'll run it out of games to find a guy for Mark.
I mean, Cameron Dantzler's having a year for sure.
Mark?
He's more of
you don't need to organize
corner.
this. This is not. It's not how this works. You don't. Need
You're
to organize
overrating my interest in the whole thing too.
Let's head to Jacksonville. Duval.
Second and goal inside the one. Pierce the lone back. Mills under center. Offset eye. Handoff Pierce to the goal line. He's in! The Texans take the lead. A 1-yard touchdown run by Damian Pierce. Welcome back to Gator Country.
Bang! Mark Vandermeer. That's the first time we've heard his voice. KILT. Damian Pierce ran for 99 and a touch. A score that was set up by a 20-yard run in which he broke not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 tackles. And it helped allow the Texans to beat the Jaguars 13-6. They've won 9 straight against the Jags.
It's preposterous.
Mark, is this your game?
Yes, it is.
Okay, my system has been shaken. I'm powering through. It sounds like yet another masterpiece from the AFC South Division.
I felt like this game was roughly 11 and a half hours long. When you get one of these in the early window, it can affect your Sunday. I did not allow it to. I just let it be.
Good.
But here's the thing
shows
about
growth.
The Texans. If you squint, occasionally you can kind of see what they're trying to do with their offense because Nico Collins, who we've talked about a lot, I don't think has been largely invisible this season compared to what I thought, made a couple big catches in this.
Nice.
Davis Mills made a couple of nice throws. He also did not play well for big chunks of this, but Damian Pierce is the real deal. The bigger story for me, though, is it was another case study of the Jaguars, who have been really up and down, not being able to close. They at one point had a drive where they went 9 plays, 68 yards to the Houston 7, and then Trevor Lawrence throws an absolutely terrible interception to Derek Stingley. He's the reason a lot of times, these drives don't fit. James Robinson stuffed on 4th and 1. They were 0-3 on 3rd down. The last of those was 4th and 10. 1:41 left. They're down 13-6. Trevor Lawrence fires the ball off target. Game over, essentially. Houston closed it out from there. And it's just like, it's not a weekly referendum on Trevor Lawrence. I know we're not allowed.
This is not going to be good for you don't want a weekly referendum on Lawrence, because now it's coming.
But if we're going to do that with every other young quarterback to some degree, it's just like there was a couple really good weeks where you started to see progress, but he's back in the place today where I thought he's just missing key throws in the game.
Maybe people want the progress too badly.
Maybe I was more speaking about last week, with the conditions and whatnot. Maybe he was take it easy with the referendum. But this was set up well for Lawrence to have a great game. He's home. He's against the Texans, the only winless team in the league. And to play poorly, if you're a Jaguars fan that was sold on generational guy, here I am doing it now. You're expecting him to play better than he played today.
They did have 422 yards of offense. Like Travis Etienne had a couple big runs. I mean, you can squint and see it with both these teams. But the Texans put up 13 points. If you told the Jaguars you're going to have you have to overcome 13 points, and you can't do it. You put up 6.
Passes just sail on Lawrence, and that's what happened to him on a couple open throws. And that's a recurring issue going back to last year. That was like the one thing where it was like, I'm not blaming that on Urban Meyer when he's just drops back to pass and sails passes, and that's happened a little too much. In all 3 of their losses, Dan, he had an interception or a turnover in the final possession when they were trying to drive for the win.
Not a good look. Gravedigger, I'm starting to think now, we'll see. The Jaguars have had some good moments early on this year too, but the last 2 weeks have been pretty dire. If the Jaguars continue along this path, you could win the AFC South with 7 wins.
Well, today the
Colts win it 3 weeks from now.
Colts are back in 2nd place. Just like we all expected preseason, the Jaguars 3rd, Texans 4th, like everything that happened in the first 3 weeks.
We kind of needed the Jaguars to take that step, and we were all feeling like that was going to happen, and now you're right back to wondering if they're still the Jaguars.
And now the Colts play the Jaguars next week, and then the Colts go to Tennessee
That's gonna be
week
ugly.
7.
And now we've got the rarest of all rare things. We've got some trade breaking news during the show. A trade on a Sunday night, Justin Graver. Breaking news.
Connected to these 2 teams? That would be even more amazing.
I wish. But the Browns are acquiring former Pro Bowl linebacker Deion Jones from the Falcons in exchange for a late-round draft pick.
Problem solved.
They have injury issues at linebacker. I mean, and they're getting run over like they are. So
Deion Jones, who we talked about throughout the summer, is he going to get moved or cut? He does get moved just in October, not August.
The subject of about 400 words that I wrote at halftime of the Falcons-Patriots Super Bowl. Deion Jones and Devondre Campbell.
Unbelievable. There you go, Mark.
What in what way?
I don't know. Maybe Deion Jones will tap into the fountain of youth and be that game changer he was.
Maybe he will.
I just like the idea that they went home after the game and they're making a trade on a Sunday night. Never seen that.
Thank you. We've given up 500 yards rushing in 2 weeks. So.
This will get Mary Kay Cabot off my back. Says your boy.
Well, she was probably home having a glass of wine at this point, and then she's back on the computer. Right, I got to sit down and write 800 words on this, please.
I'm leaving.
All right, there you go. So that is all the early and late and super early. She had the London game, so we will say goodbye to you watching along, and thank you always for watching along. And if you want to hear our recap of Sunday Night Football, please check out the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Until then, so long.
actually happening.
It's
guys.
actually happening.
Here.
I also like the Drake London call because, well, fight on, but also I think he gets a lot of targets all day long. Just be able to sit down and just watch football and watch fantasy points rack up.
Naheem Hines to the moon.
It's Hines season, baby.
Yes. Is there a waiver wire target that we should feel really confident to go out and get it done for us today, Florio?
Yeah, I mentioned some tight ends earlier. So listen, I'm just asking. There it is. This is what normally happens here.